I just want to thank everybody for coming back to Sarita Talks. What a wonderful opportunity to talk to a dear friend of mine. And, I'm all about being a believer. I'm all about saying that, hey, there's something that has got me to where I'm at. And if you don't see it, then what do I need? What do I need to do further? Because usually, if you're doing the right thing, people can tell from your actions. You don't even have to say a word. Well, let me tell you, some of those people are so kind to kind of step into my life in different ways and means. One of those people, Ways and Means Committee. Okay, listen, stop thinking about politics. Okay, leave it where it's at. All right, I know it happens to me too. Happens to me too. Okay, Renee Reed Miller came into my life, and it was a divine appointment. She came into my life when I realized that I had been running so hard and doing so much, because seriously, it needs to be a diagnosis in the DSM about people who feel like they've lost time and they run, run, run. And I said, I really want to start taking time for myself. And Renee told me things. And by the next time I saw her, they had made a vast impact. Renee, let me turn it over to Renee Reed Miller, Renee Miller Group. She does some speaking. She's writing a book. She is my friend. Renee, tell us.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm so grateful to you, and I know that your work speaks volumes in my life too. I feel like that in the short time that we've known one another, it has been an assurance, a blessed assurance every time we connect. And so to be able to share about Reed Miller Group on your successful, amazing podcast, it just feels like I'm in the wake of a superstar. So thank you for being here and for leading in so many things. You're leading. Yeah. Leading the way. So Reed Miller Group is really a calling, a deep calling from my life of many years of encountering burnout. You talked about that, accelerated pace that's so hard to interrupt. And I lived some of that in different ways, in different circumstances and experiences, but I definitely depleted my batteries. Yeah. And I saw how many people around me had modeled that hustle lifestyle, that accelerated lifestyle, and that I had never learned the skills I needed to sustain health, both of the body and the mind, but especially of the spirit. So we talk about the things of the spirit being central. This is how I center and ground myself. So when I teach practices and I talk to anyone about what I do, all of it is grounded on a rock center that is of faith, and the peace of God grounds it. Otherwise, we would just be swept away by every level of uncertainty and every storm that comes our way. Yeah. So these practices really are best practiced with the spirit in the driver's
as the focus. Yeah. You've got to do it holistically. Yeah. You really do. Yeah. And so the title is about you practice a form of expressing yourself through art, correct? Did I say it right?
Oh, you did. Well, excellent.
Thank you. Well, she helped me to express myself, and it was something so simple. I was just, mentioning where I was at and where I wanted to be. And I had an appointment, I think, coming up later on. She said, well, just write down 5 things, 5 things that you want to do. So it could be something that's simple, or it could be really unpacking some things. Renee, I know you've done a lot of unpacking with yourself and other people. You want to tell us a little about it?
Yeah.
Thanks.
I'll kind of talk a little bit about what you mentioned with the 5 things. That was a set of intentions that your body already knew. And I really feel like that we're not listening sometimes to what our body already knows. And that data or, that information is locked up in our bodies. It is crying out to be heard. And it comes out through maybe, our eyes twitching, or constant yawning, or a neck ache, or some other somatic response. And our body is telling us there's an emergency. Stop, pause, listen to what's going on so that you can be well. And so when you set forth those 5 intentions, that was wisdom that was body-based in you and spirit-based. And it was already there. I didn't say anything to make it happen. Your body already and your spirit already had it. Well, it really was wisdom that you already had. And it was just the intention of following that through. And I think it was also, along with intention, correct me if I'm wrong, but it was
No.
also permission.
Amen. Yes, because I battle a lot, and everybody who watches this show knows my past. With if I am not doing something, then people will lose faith in me. They will think I'm just a prisoner. They will think that everything I'm saying I do not mean. I'm not going to really do. And a lot of times, and this is, I'm a small business owner, entrepreneur, also nonprofit leader. We always think that if we don't do it, no one else will.
Yeah.
And that's why we you're stressed, you don't feel good, something's not right. But if I don't do it, no one else will. Do you know how we can get away from that
Yes,
feeling?
absolutely. Yes.
Please.
It really is rooted in shame. It's
It
rooted in
is.
shame. And
Mhm.
it's like when we come to that realization that this is rooted in shame, we have to pull up those roots just like we have to pull up roots of bitterness.
Mm.
And we have to think about those things with intention again to recognize that I do not need to punish myself while I'm at rest. If
Hmm.
I'm at rest, I should be rewarding myself for doing what my body needs. And so shifting
I
our
feel like you need to
mindset,
say that again.
yeah, we
Like,
should be
enjoy the
rewarding
rest,
ourselves for
enjoy the
rest. Yes,
relaxation.
yes, accepting it with permission and with celebration.
Ooh,
We don't celebrate rest enough. We
we don't.
celebrate work culture in this country. And I was raised in a different country. We've talked a little bit about this.
Yeah.
And so the culture that surrounded me in the country of Jordan was one that valued hospitality, but
Mhm.
also valued rest in so much as it valued rest on an entire day that was
Ooh.
set forth through the Islamic faith, like
Uh-huh.
set forth for being holy. And as a Christian, I also learned that we should have a day of rest, but
Mhm.
actually a lot of times going to church on that day of rest and doing all the other things
Mhm.
associated with religious practice on that quote unquote day of rest can
Mhm.
become a lot of hustle culture.
It
And
surely
so
can.
I learned from people around me in an Islamic nation how to more effectively make my day of rest sacred. And when
Hmm.
I made it sacred, I started to feel like, oh, it's not only a day for me to celebrate taking care of this vessel, this body, this temple, but
Yeah.
it's also a holy thing. It's something
Mhm.
that's set apart from the rest of the week that I should be pausing to thank God for being alive, for being given the opportunity to rest and rejuvenate and recharge.
Yeah.
Because God did that, in the days of creation. He stopped in the seventh day and
Right.
said, even God stopped and
Mhm.
said, this is a day of rest and modeled it for us. And so, Friday in the way I was raised was
Yeah.
the day of the national day of rest in Islamic faith.
Really? Well,
Yeah, Friday.
TGIF,
Yeah.
Jordan,
So Fridays
Patty.
are you probably know this because Fridays are actually for me more of a day of rest still because
Yeah.
that's the cadence of what I was raised with. And
Mhm.
I'm not Muslim, but I see Fridays still as a day of rest.
Yeah.
And so
'Cause you're
Sundays tend to not be so much a day of rest for me. I have to be intentional about
right.
Sundays not taking over my life because of all of the religious practices that
Mhm.
Christianity involves. So
Yeah.
anyway, yeah,
No, no, no.
that's
I feel
that's
like
one reason.
you are so right. And when we're setting these intentions to relax, I feel like a
Yeah.
lot of times, as soon as you get in that position and you're like, oh, I'm going to read this book, then your mind starts thinking about, but I'm sure I need to send this email. There's this going to happen at work. I need to talk to this person. I need to do this. You know what? Just like, I need to put this on my grocery list, da, 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 da.
Uh-huh.
And I feel like I'm not the only one. I feel
You're
like
not.
so many of
Oh
us are
no.
going through life.
Yes.
And when it's time to relax, exactly like you said. It's shame. Like, I shouldn't be relaxing.
Yeah.
I shouldn't
And
be.
feeling so
Mhm.
guilty. And the guilt comes from that sense of obligation and that
Mhm.
sense of performance that we are not valued unless we're performing and also unless we're accruing some sort of return on whatever we do.
Oh, yeah.
Transactional culture is toxic.
Mhm.
Transactional friendships are toxic. We need to realize that time and the presence of people and the presence of ourselves with ourselves,
Amen.
I'm going to say it again, the presence of ourselves with ourselves should
Mhm.
not be transactional. We
No.
should not feel that we have to perform every hour of the day. We should be
I
able
never
to
thought of that
say,
about being
yes,
transactional with yourself.
yeah. Oh, we totally are. We feel like if if I want to do something like, let's say, watch a movie, and
Yeah.
that maybe that's my one thing I'm going to do as a treat during the week, and I'm going to give myself that time, and
Hmm.
let's say, and maybe it's sitting down to read a book, as you
Yeah.
mentioned. Well, I have to do a load of laundry while I'm doing it.
That's exactly what I was thinking first. You got to do
Okay.
that laundry before you can sit down and watch that movie because you got laundry in there. So how are you going to watch this
Yeah.
movie and you know you have laundry?
Right.
Hmm.
And so
Yeah.
even the culture of coaching and the culture of a lot of these wellness tips and things
Hmm.
teaches us to micro batch things, and
Hmm.
that we can get much more done if we batch things together. But I feel like if we batch things together in everything that we do, if
Hmm.
if we're going to have a walking meeting, that's healthy, that's great. But
Yeah.
sometimes just walking for yourself is more important
You don't always
than
have to
doing it with a
multitask.
meeting. You do not have to and multitasking can be very taxing on our brains. It actually wears us out. It's not
Mhm.
good for us. That was a lie and a myth of the 1990s. We need to get over that one.
We
You know,
do.
we need
Yeah.
to rewrite the pattern of time and presence in a way that says, I can be present and I can be in my parasympathetic rest and digest mode. I don't
Mm.
have to be amplified in sympathetic mode. Our nervous systems, when we're with one another, are often in an amplified state. You can
Mm.
usually tell it. And that's that day that we met.
Yeah.
I noticed maybe there was a little amplified autonomic nervous system state going on because
Uh-huh.
you were in that you hustle, you were in that, I've got to get things done mode, and that's
Absolutely.
great. It's great because you get a
Absolutely.
lot done, and wow,
Hmm.
you power through it. But I was like, what do you do for you, and when is there time for you?
And
It's
divine
okay to
appointment.
take it. Yeah,
That
it's
was
okay to take it.
listen, it was like the thought was becoming more and more solid, and she gave me an action step. And I was going to take that action step because, people can tell you something over and over again. Like, I feel like you're going to burn up. I feel like you're doing too much. I feel like this.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes we're like, oh, well, I'll get around to it. I'll get around to it. But I really feel like this. You're not listening. If people all sorts of different walks of life are telling you the same thing, maybe it's not originating from their minds. Maybe we
Listen
need
to
to
the
listen.
message.
Yeah.
But
Tune
it
in.
wasn't only me, obviously. It was
No,
the
no.
accumulation of all of the people who cared to say it.
Yeah.
And I think we need to be able to be caring in community. That's one thing I do through
Mhm.
therapeutic art, and I do it through therapeutic and expressive means. So sometimes the art is really the body-based movement. That is an art in
Mhm.
itself.
Yeah.
And sometimes the art is really sound and music based.
Yeah.
Sometimes the art is visual art. Sometimes it's just movement that incorporates a use of art materials, but the product doesn't matter. But no
Yeah.
matter what, it's always just a process. And when we see that the process of communicating with one another can be caring, it
Mhm.
changes the way we interact. We're meant to be social creatures.
We
We're
are.
not meant to ask of everyone around us to give something back, to
Mhm.
pay us with some sort of transaction. We're really meant to be here with a heart that's generous and hospitable. And it says, you
Mhm.
know what? I can learn from this person right here. I
And
can learn. And also, I can share because we can together
mhm.
reciprocally exchange something that is even better than if we were by ourselves in this
Yeah.
moment,
Oh,
because
yeah.
it's suspended in a spiritual sense. It's
Mhm.
sacred. So the time
Yeah.
we spend together, the time we spend alone, the more we think about time as sacred, I think we
Mhm.
really make more decisive and intentional choices.
Absolutely.
And
And be decisive and intentional with the people you surround yourself with too,
oh yes.
because some people, and they don't even know it, they have an energy that's off, or maybe
Ah!
they're still working through their own trauma. They're still working through their
Yes.
own issues. And it's, you know what, you can always impart that knowledge and keep it moving. You know what I'm
Oh
saying? You
yes.
can say
And
something good and keep it going.
oh
Don't
yes.
always feel like you have to save your negative friend. Just
No.
know that, hey, that's someone I care about, but I don't want too much of that around at this time. Not like we
No,
don't love
thank
you,
you.
not like we're going to neglect you, but don't feel like, because volunteering
Oh,
is
yeah.
totally different. You have to put people in not boxes, but you want to put them in different categories. Like Renee strengthens my soul. So
Mm.
I want to be around Renee. Now, my negative friend, maybe I strengthen her soul and she wants to be around me. Well, great. Well, then we're gonna go and I'm gonna meet you. But when you get that going, I'm gonna have to just kind of move away. And that's
Mm-hmm.
okay, isn't
It
it?
is. It is. And giving yourself permission for that is okay too, because there
Yeah.
are energy vampires. That's what I call that type
That
of
is exactly what
situation.
it is.
And
Yeah.
it's like plugging in to an outlet. That person is plugging into your energy, to
Mm,
your positivity, to your presence, and siphoning that in a way that maybe they need for that split moment, but it is
yeah.
not. It is it is not expected, and it is not necessary for us to do that in every instance. We do have to draw boundaries around that type of
Yes.
behavior because, again, that can create a savior complex. And then that
Mhm.
person who keeps allowing people to plug into them will become depleted and burned out. And they won't understand why. They'll say, "Oh, I'm such a good person," in their mind. They may say that.
Yeah,
By the way,
yeah.
my
Uh-huh.
little microphone just fell, sorry.
Oh, no,
And they
no,
might
no,
say,
that's okay.
I try to help people. I try to help this, help that. But it
Mhm,
becomes a savior complex if that person is depleted and never helps themselves.
mhm. And then, and you know what? A lot of times in that situation, that person becomes resentful
They
because I
do. Oh, yeah.
poured everything
Ooh,
out, and
yeah.
then when I need someone to pour into me,
Yeah.
you
And I've heard
know,
those words. I've heard those words. Oh,
not
those
for me
exact
either.
words, not from you. But I've
Uh-huh.
heard them
See?
from actual situations where it was like,
Confirmation.
let's talk. It is confirmation. Let's talk
Mhm.
about the boundaries that you have learned to set or
Yeah.
not learned to set.
Oh,
And
yeah.
again, those boundaries we can examine those through nonverbal art
Mm.
exercises and
Tell us more
nonverbal
about that,
interventions.
please.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so I actually use body-based movement for boundaries
Yeah.
because I think that we've learned boundaries with our bodies. At
Mhm.
least to some extent, we have maybe had boundaries violated with our bodies. Again,
Mhm.
my microphone fell out. I
Yeah.
apologize. Can you
That's
still
okay.
hear
We can
me?
hear you.
Okay. But we've learned that to some extent with our bodies. So our
Mhm.
bodies know how to handle boundaries. So I
Yeah.
use the micro movement idea of
Mhm.
saying, let's do a micro movement exercise to bring to life what that boundary looks like if you were to create it with your body.
Hmm.
And so we know that body language shows us if we're setting forth a boundary subconsciously.
Is this like an example?
Yes, but
Or
also this is an example.
it is, you're closed off now.
We're trying to we're trying to support ourselves, we're trying
Mm.
to protect ourselves because we
Mhm.
feel at threat, right?
Mhm.
But when we do something like that, it shows our mind that our body
Yeah.
is trying to give us a message. Remember what I said in the initial part of our conversation? There
Yes.
were messages and there's body-based wisdom in all of that. So I
Mhm.
just tap into that body-based wisdom again. It's already there. And
Yeah.
I talk about how do you feel when this happens in your body? Is your body slumped over?
Mm.
Is it
Yeah.
is it not supported and does it not feel lifted?
Mhm.
What would happen if we lifted our bodies in this moment and then we thought about encountering that person again? And that
Mhm.
person makes us feel what? Drained, slumped over.
Oh,
So
yeah.
that's how we know we're around an energy vampire. We know that that person is going to take more than they can give. It's
Yeah.
not in their capacity to give right now. So how much we give needs to be titrated or it
Right.
needs to be like measured so that
And
we
you know
don't
what? Here's another thing too. And I don't know
overpour.
if you would
Mhm.
agree, but not everything has to be so hands-on. Because
No.
listen, I can love you from afar and
Yes,
keep you lifted up in prayer and
that's
positive
right.
thoughts and want the best for you. And
That's
that
right.
right there sometimes needs to kind of alleviate that heart condition, like, oh, I'm not doing enough, I'm not doing enough, I'm not doing
No.
enough. But then when I'm down there in the gutter because I've been
Yeah,
doing too much,
right.
then I'm sad, like, oh, nobody's gonna pour into me.
Right. It's
Transactional. So
transactional.
if I'm
Yeah,
protecting myself this whole time with strong boundaries, then I
mhm,
know that I've given what I could.
that's right. And you're not expecting anything in return. What
No, not
happens
at
if we
all.
continue to pour ourselves out and we think about when we're done visiting with that type of individual, stick a fork in
Mhm.
me, I'm done, like a steak.
Yeah.
I'm well done. Okay.
Yes, put a
Okay,
fork in me.
if we think of it like that, then we know, okay, I may not be able to have the capacity, as you were saying,
Hmm.
to really interact with this person in person. My
Yeah.
presence is going to be too depleted. And that
Hmm.
means spiritual presence, body-based presence, strength and energy, all of the above, mental
Hmm.
acumen and cognitive performance, all of it's going to be depleted. Then I know, okay, there have to be other ways that I need to set a boundary with this relationship. And when we learn to set those boundaries with relationships, we learn better how to set them for ourselves in self care,
Absolutely.
because
Yeah.
we learn how to heal in relationship. And as we're in relationship and we set those boundaries, we learn how to heal our own internal boundaries for ourselves. And ourselves, that we respond in ourselves. We respond with a moment that says, I could do this or I could do this. I could go and I could hustle right now.
Hmm.
But do I want to get amped up? What will that do to my system? And
Yeah.
how will I feel after that? Am I ready to engage in this way? If not, maybe I attend virtually and I
Mm.
don't attend in person.
Got somebody tuning
And
in.
that's
Just
self
want to thank
care,
you.
tuning in. Yeah. Oh, for me
Yeah.
too. For me too.
Yeah, if you want to throw
So,
some in the chat, go right ahead.
oh,
Whoever's viewing
good.
us on the YouTube, we
Hi.
appreciate you. Thank you so much. Please subscribe, like, and share. Yeah. So you know what, Renee, and I'm pretty sure you know this too. I've been that, not specifically about me, because since you've met me, I've been, you know what I'm saying, I'm doing a lot better. But I have been that energy vampire too, because I was in a bad place. And
Yes.
even though I didn't want to put that off on people, you can be in a bad place and just your presence, your demeanor, you're protecting yourself, like all of that can put something in the atmosphere. And I wasn't consciously trying to
No,
be
not at
depressing
all.
and sad. It wasn't, and it, if I was putting out there in the atmosphere, I'm not going to take complete ownership of whose fault that was. It just
Mhm.
happened.
It
And
did.
you know
Yeah.
what? If someone had to step away from me, then I've got to respect them for that.
Yes. 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 Respect is due. And I think we
Yeah.
are learning to do that more after the pandemic, because we made choices in the pandemic about our safe circle, and
Mhm.
we made choices and we learned very quickly, rapidly, who we felt most safe with and who
Yeah.
we did not. And a lot of people did not feel safe with very many people, and they were isolated in that time. And now there may be a need to um, overexpress,
Yeah.
because genuinely they're depleted and they need
Mhm.
people, because isolation is real, loneliness is real, it's toxic to your health. It actually is worse than smoking 17 cigarettes a day.
I believe
Staying in
it.
isolation and in loneliness can cause so many health concerns.
It
And
can
so
kill a
I try to find
baby.
the happy medium. It can kill a baby.
Yeah,
It's
if you don't pick up a
absolutely
baby and
true.
love on it.
Yes. And they may still stay alive in their physical bodies, but their minds and their spirits
Mhm.
become stunted. And all of us as humans need one another. But I think we learn when we get in that moment that says, mm, maybe I'm the energy vampire in the room. When we get
Yeah.
in that moment, I just want to be able to help people learn how to interrupt that moment themselves and
Amen.
say, I may need to step out here and recharge. I deserve that. It's
Mhm.
okay. If I'm the person that's causing all of that, it's
Yeah.
not my fault. It's just a factor of human existence that we can become overextended, especially in a culture that rewards it, and a
It
culture
does.
that rewards overextension and burnout.
It
It
does.
rewards it. It's ridiculous. And I said, no more. I put up a boundary, okay,
Yeah.
body boundary. And I said, in that time, I cannot do this anymore. I'm not going to live by that standard. And there are costs. We call it opportunity cost in business. And you know that
I
there are
do.
costs when you make choices as an entrepreneur. And I
Mhm.
made a choice and I said, I need to help people learn how to make that choice. And that choice doesn't necessarily have to cost us income.
Yeah.
You know, it may.
Yeah.
It may cost us income. It may
But in the
cost us
long run,
people in our network. It may also cost us time, but
Hmm.
the cost out they do not outweigh the benefits. The benefits outweigh the cost 10 times over if we can
Absolutely.
learn those new skills. And I think all of us can learn those new skills. If I could learn them from living a life with let me tell you, the way that I was raised, there's no way that I should be healthy now
Oh.
because the things I learned that were modeled for me,
Hmm.
it's no one's fault because the people who taught me did not have those tools. And I
Yeah.
don't blame anyone for it. But I do see that the cost on my own parents' health was evidence enough for me to
Mm.
interrupt it.
Yeah.
I saw a decline in my own mother. I saw a decline in my father. And I
Hmm.
sat down with my father and I said, Dad, why has no one ever taught you these things that I'm having to learn for myself? And why didn't we learn this? And I was astounded from such a wise leader, reverend,
Tell me one of the
pastor,
things that he did
all
that
of the
no one
things.
had taught him.
No one had ever taught him that it was okay to do what we talked about, to stop
Oh,
and give himself time, that it
that's
was
right, because
all
your
about
daddy was a
everyone else.
missionary
He
and
was
a
a pastor.
preacher.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And I feel
And
like when the more
oof,
that you are called upon,
oof,
the more that you're going to extend
yes,
and yes, and
overextend more than
yeah,
we
and
have,
we're
right?
happy to extend, but at the same time, when it comes time to pour out and you don't have anything left,
Mm.
that's
And
what
it
we're
in
trying
fact
to avoid.
in fact affected his heart.
Hmm.
In fact affected so many things in his health, and it affected my mother's health to an
Oh,
extreme level. And
yeah.
I can talk about that another day, but I will say
Yeah.
when I saw the decline in my mother's health,
Hmm.
it was the biggest wake up call. I had already had wake up calls, which I will share maybe a different day, but I
Hmm.
had wake up calls that consisted of interruptions in my life that I didn't have a choice. So um, I had to learn to walk again after a traumatic accident, and I was going full steam ahead. And you know what? Literally and figuratively, I was going full steam ahead, and I had to stop. I had to stop and I had to reassess. But you know what? That wasn't even enough. When my mother's
Hmm.
diagnosis came down the pike, was what really added to the accumulation of all of those messages that we talked about before. How, okay,
Yes.
we can hear it all these times. And then
Hmm.
finally, the
Yes.
dominoes fall, and we realize, oh, I have to take stock. I took stock when she got sick, and I
Hmm.
realized if I don't stop, I could end up just like her.
That's right. That's
And I
right.
had to say, now that I know these skills, how can I use them in a new and interesting way? And
Yeah.
I like to do these things because they're experiential. They get us moving, they get us thinking in new ways, and sometimes we're not talking at all,
I love
which
it.
is sometimes scary for people who are really good at the verbal skills like
Uh-huh.
you are and
Yeah.
other people I know are. But
Hmm.
I'm one of those verbal people that I
Yes.
had to say, you know what? I don't only need this to communicate. I need to know how my body is communicating
Yeah.
because if I'm not listening to my body, then my spirit will follow suit.
That's
My
right.
spirit will say, you're not listening to me. Go and pray or go and rest or go and
Yeah.
cry out for more recharging moments. And if I stop, I will listen, hear, and respond. And
That's
it really
right.
is a response now. At the time, and it was reactive. I mean, I was like
Mhm.
panicked. I cannot let this happen to me in my life, kind of thing. But
Yeah.
I learned that it is responsiveness, and
I
that's
love
how we
that.
are with God, right?
Yeah.
We're in a moment where we hear the counsel of God and we're responsive to it in our own spirit. We can hear that still small voice. It's in us.
It's a
It's
relationship.
just oh yeah, it is. It's a relationship. And healing
Yes.
happens in relationships, right?
That's
It
right.
happens in
Healing
our ultimate
happens
relationship
in
too.
relationship.
Yeah,
Renee, you do coaching, don't you?
I do. I
And
offer
consultant work,
coaching.
correct?
Yes, I
Very
offer
nice.
coaching
Tell us how to
consulting.
reach you.
Yes.
How do we get a
You're
hold
welcome
of
to reach
Reed
me
Miller?
over, yeah, you're welcome to reach me through my website. And it's
Yeah.
just my full name, reneereedmiller.com. And Reed
Okay.
Miller Group exists to be able to really boost this kind of learning for staffs, for
Yeah.
teams, for executives, for, especially entrepreneurs, because I have a special heart for entrepreneurs as
Yeah.
one
And
myself.
we need support.
Ooh, we do need support.
Yes, we
And
do.
educators are really a lot
Mhm.
of the individuals I see now. And I work with groups and individuals. to coach them into understanding how to better care for themselves and for their communities. Because once we care for ourselves, we make space for caring in community.
Wow. It doesn't get better than that. Renee Reed Miller, thank you so much for coming on here.
Thank
Reed
you
Miller
so much.
Group, Sage Wisdom. She's coming on again. Keep tuned in. Renee, you want to tell us anything before we go?
I just want to say thank you. I want to say thank you for expressing such a humane call in your
Mm,
podcast, for saying it's okay to be authentic, it's okay to be real in this world and share from our space of pain into promise. And I see
mm.
so much promise, and I see so much that I know is of God in your life. And so I just want to celebrate that, and I want to applaud that, because it takes a lot of courage and you've done it. So thank you for being who you are.
Thank you,
I appreciate
Renee.
you, friend. I love you.
I love you too, friend. Genuine friend.